shine on Happy Camper Life. We're loving, living, and learning online on Happy Camper Life.
Hey, Happy Campers, this is Allison Miller, the founder and CEO of Happy Camper Live, and we are here at Raising a Happy Camper podcast. And my guest today is Anna Yudina. Anna, welcome.
Hi, Allison. Thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you today. And Anna, I'm asking you if you could please start by telling us a bit about Genius of Play and the work that you've been doing for this nonprofit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, everybody. I'm Anna Yudina. I'm a senior director of marketing initiatives at the Toy Association. And this is where I lead the nonprofit initiative called the Genius of Play that Allison just mentioned. So, it is an initiative spearheaded by the Toy Association. And what is it all about? Well, it is about giving parents, caregivers, and educators all kinds of play ideas, activities, resources, things to do with your family, also educating about the benefits of play. We work with a lot of different experts, so we share expert advice on our website. Ultimately, it's all about what are the benefits of play, what are kids learning through play, and what can you as a parent, caregiver, or educator do in order to activate this genius of play in your family or in your classroom.
It's amazing. And I'm so excited to be here to talk about play, because here at Happy Camper Live, we're all about play. And with summer here, and I know it's, coming to a close, and, it is that time, but at Happy Camper Live, it's summer all year round. Why is playtime particularly important during this season?
First of all, I love summer all year round. I wish that were true. But even though it's not all year round, summer is the longest break that kids have every year. There is no school. They don't have to worry about homework. So there's all this free time. And that's great. But we know that free time can also be challenging. And I'll give you one example. So at the Genius of Play, we often ask parents, we do research about different things. So once in the spring, we ask parents, are you looking forward to the summer or not? And if you're not looking forward to it, why? So it was funny that half of the parents said, yes, we're looking forward, can't wait, want the free time, want to spend time with my kids. And the other half of the parents was not so enthusiastic. They were dreading a little bit all this free time. And what am I going to do? School is going to be closed. How am I going to keep my kids occupied? How am I going to keep them engaged and learning and doing something valuable? Right. So we know that screens is a struggle for parents any time of the year. And, trying to balance that screen time and making sure that kids do not spend too much time on screens, or whatever time they spend is balanced, that becomes even more of a challenge during the summer. And unfortunately, there is data that shows that as the summer begins, screen time for kids tends to increase. So there are hard numbers that show that there is more streaming, more video games, just more time that kids play with the screen. So that answers the question, why is traditional play is so important during the summer? Well, because you want that balance. And we know, again, from all that research, that play is extremely beneficial for kids, that it helps not only with their physical skills, but also cognitive, social, emotional, creativity, communication. There is this well-rounded learning that happens when a child is playing. So that is super important. And you want to make sure during the summer, when kids have a little bit of extra time, that they use some of that time to capitalize on all of those benefits.
Yeah, what an interesting survey. I find that fascinating. And I think for parents, it can be overwhelming to think of like months, that they need to figure out what to do with their kids and how to keep them engaged, like you said, in these ways, whether it's educationally or just being physical, and not being behind the screen. And I think what's really great about what Genius of Play, the inspirations on your site, they have lots of different categories. So you can take a lot of these ideas and incorporate them into different parts of the day. So that actually leads me to ask, so what are creative ways that parents can bring play into the daily routine of the summer?
Yeah, so that's exactly like you said, what the geniusofplay.org is all about. And I'm sure Happy Camper Live and other websites that have resources for parents. So we have literally hundreds of play ideas on the geniusofplay.org. And we try to make it easy for parents to incorporate those play ideas into their play routine. So they can be sorted by child age, obviously, right? So if you have a 3-year-old or you have a 13-year-old, we have age appropriate ideas for that. But they can also be sorted by prep time, for instance. So if you only have 5 minutes, right? If that's all your routine allows at any given moment, then you can filter play ideas on our website and you can find ready to use activities. We also have downloadable coloring pages, activity sheets. So those are super easy to just print out and give to your child, and that can keep them occupied for a certain period of time. Now, if you have a little bit more time, we also have activities that require multiple kids, for instance, whether you have multiple kids or it's a play date kind of situation. So whatever is your situation, whatever your routine is, and that is going to look different, obviously, for every parent, you can filter down and find something that will work for your family and for your kid. And we also, because it's summer and we have hundreds of ideas, and not all of them are great for summer, some of them are more indoors, rainy day kind of activities, we wanted to select the ones that really take advantage of the great weather, outdoors, nature, and we put together a curated collection, which we call the Summer Playbook. And that is currently on our website. Parents can download it, they can print, or they can just pull it up on their mobile phone. So some of the great activities like action figure float, for instance, that is a super fun activity anytime you're near any body of water. So great for a pool, great for a lake. You could potentially do it during the winter in the bathtub, but it's a lot more fun during the summer when we're outdoors. Could be done in a very small pool, can be like a toy inflatable kind of pool as well. Doesn't need to be a huge thing. And kids learn a ton when they're doing things like that. So that's just one example. We have a lot of others. There's Nature Mirror, which teaches them about plants. There is this activity called Animal Moves that's just like a great way to get your child to move their body in all the different ways and get them off the couch. So those are all great idea starters. And again, like I said, the best thing is that you can always filter down and find something that works for your family.
One of the things that I was thinking about is as you know, I'm a real life camp director and I'm doing a lot of planning, and I do like to always like to have my toolbox of ideas so that, like, right now it's raining at camp and it's like, oh my gosh, what do? We got to move the kids inside. And there's a lot of juggling for a parent. You think your day is going to be this, maybe you get called into a meeting and you need to just find something that the kids can do that will keep them busy on their own. But maybe there's another time when you want to engage with your kids and you want to make it a family activity. So the Genius of Play website, the way you have everything filtered is fantastic. And I think that having almost like a recipe card book, like an old-fashioned index cards, and taking some time to either jot down some of the ideas from the website or printing them out because they are accessible, having your own playbook, like you do the summer playbook, but you could have create your own playbook based on what you think your kids will like. And, it wouldn't take a huge commitment to do your own research and homework and come up with, that as a resource and have it around so that you can just grab it. Or if, during the summer, families are traveling and you just get in the car and you're going on a, going on a road trip or going camping, all of those activities that you have can be just can be great resources. And yes, you can grab your phone and your computer at the time, but I really like the idea of being like, I'm a very practical, mom too. You just want to have something that you can grab and you can read. And also you could go through it with your kids too, like hop on the site and plan your days. Like that's what we do as camp directors. So sort of put on your hat and say, let's go on this great website. Let's check it out. And let's see if we can put together a couple of things that you want to do. Each afternoon, we're going to pick one activity, depending on the kind of time that you have with your kids. So I think that taking a resource and being able to really utilize it is what we're here to do. It's right, Anna, to say like, we're here to help. Happy Camper Live has incredible videos too that help parents, and kids can learn a million things just on our site as well, because our missions are the same, right? We want kids to get outside and play. That's why you and I connected. And so being able to have this collaboration, which is we just started, is really fun because we're so aligned in what we do. So I just really encourage parents to not just like hop on the site like it's anything else in the world that you've seen, but like really go in and use it to support yourself. So if you were looking at making a summer routine for your kids, or even let's say fall break, spring break, winter break with your kids, what are some creative ways that the parents can integrate the content?
Well, I think it depends on what you're doing. So if you have, for instance, if you're looking for ideas for travel, right? And things to do while you are going on vacation. So vacations are fun, but getting there is not always fun. And there is always a long trip involved, whether it's in a car or on a plane. So we have some expert advice that specifically deals with those situations. So one of the most popular articles on our website, for example, is called 5 Games to Play in the Car. And we see that every time it's like a driving season, whether it's a spring break, like you mentioned, or a summer vacation, there is a spike in visits for that particular article. So you can definitely find things like that, that fit specific time of the year. Or if, let's say, you're looking for play and learn ideas. Let's say it's the school year, which is going to start soon, already starting in some parts of the country, and you're looking for more, and maybe leading up to the school year, you're looking for some activities that are a little bit heavier on learning. So we have ideas like Sky Survey, for instance, Bedroom Planetarium on the website that are great to get kids excited about science and technology and nature. And then also STEAM toys. Wanted to just kind of like mention that as a great resource for parents to incorporate learning and play into whatever it is that they're doing. This is super easy with STEAM toys because they are designed specifically to be fun and engaging. They're not homework, they're not educational materials, they're toys. So they start with fun, but they also have this big learning component. And at the Toy Association, we actually have an accreditation program for STEAM toys. And just for anybody who may not know, it's science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So that stands for STEAM. So the Toy Association works with an organization called the Good Play Guide, which evaluates toys. And the way they do that is really amazing. So they have kids play with the toys, age-appropriate toys. So every toy has a lot of kid testers. And then they have adults who are experts in child development, and they observe how kids are playing and what's happening. Are they having fun? Are they engaging with the toy? What are they learning? What are they discovering? And then they basically evaluate the toy based on a number of criteria, which we all have detailed in the STEAM toy assessment framework. And toys that pass, they truly represent the best of the best in STEAM toys. So that is another great way to incorporate play and learning and everything together.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that sounds like an incredible resource and focus, especially during, the school year when you're trying to hit on all of those different areas. And as even art has been incorporated into STEM, and we have our now STEAM, when we're looking at art where programs are being cut so much, those kind of programs from schools, it's even more important that parents like make up for that deficit. So to be able to incorporate that into their play that they're bringing to the house, it's just a nice way to keep everything, all the learning happening. So
And in a fun way. Yes.
Oh, yeah, in a fun way. It's
That's
all
the
about
best way
fun.
that
It's
kids
all
learn,
about
right?
fun. We're all about fun. So I was wondering, you were talking a lot about like screen time and things like that at the beginning. And I was wondering, like, how do parents strike a balance between structured and unstructured time? Especially
that's
during the
a
time
great
that kids have off from school, regardless of what season it is.
So that is a great question, and I would say that if you're an average kid these days, you are probably going to have quite a bit of structured time in your life. Definitely during the school year, it's very, very structured for a lot of kids, but also during the summer. So some kids will go to camp, some kids will choose sports, they will get engaged with clubs and things like that, play dates. So there are a lot of sort of like adult supervised activities, and those are really great. There is a tremendous amount that kids learn from like being on a team, playing a sport. It's losing and winning, being disciplined, teamwork, empathy, great things like that. But there is a different skill set associated with unstructured playtime. And just so that we understand, like, what is unstructured playtime? Well, first of all, it's something that is not planned, not supervised, or maybe supervised, but not led by an adult. So depending on the age of the child, absolutely, it may require adult supervision, but the adult is just a fly on the wall. They're not telling them what to do, they're not telling them what to play. So the child, him or herself, determines what it is that they want to play with, what is the game like, what is the story, how are they spending this time. So that's unstructured play. So why is it important? So a couple of things. Well, first of all, if you are always told what to do by somebody else, an adult, you kind of learn that there is always somebody to tell you what to do, but you don't necessarily discover what it is that you like to do, right? And how does it influence motivation, confidence, self-direction, discovering one's own self, one's own passions and interests. So all of those skills, I almost think of them as like entrepreneurial skills, but they're not only important for entrepreneurs. I think that life is an enterprise that each and every one of us builds, right? The best way that we can, the best way that we know. And we're all entrepreneurs in a sense that we need to figure out our path in life and what drives us, what motivates us, and what it is that we want to spend our energy towards. So those types of skills are really, and that's research, it's a body of research that exists, that those kinds of skills are really best developed during unstructured playtime. So I would say the balance is really important. And in terms of like how to balance, well, like I said, a lot of kids already are going to have a lot of structured activities. So it's almost like parents sometimes need to hold back a little bit and try not to schedule every last minute and not feel bad. That's what, that's something important that I think happens sometimes, as parents. And I know my sister, she's parenting a 6-year-old, and she feels sometimes that the more dance lessons and, foreign language lessons and choir lessons, and that's like all the different activities that she does, the better job that she does as a mother. And that's true, that's great, but it's also important to remember that kids need this balance. They need time where they decide how they play, and all you need to do is just give them some tools, give them some materials, toys, open-ended toys, dolls, action figures, play sets, crafts, coloring, all sorts of things like that, dress up, things that they can play with in a variety of ways, and they can do anything with that. They can use their imagination, and then they can build that sort of like motivation and self-direction. So that's super important, and parents should not feel bad about allowing their kids the time and the space to just play, with no specific purpose.
Yeah, that was a really incredible definition of unstructured play. And I'm sure you've probably given that before, but as a parent sitting here listening, and that ability for kids to be able to explore on their own and choose what some of the things are that they want to do is so critical to the process. Some kids are really lucky that they may go to a camp where they have tons of activities, so they can say, wow, I really, I didn't know that I really like chess or building rockets or swimming as much as I thought. But not every kid has that opportunity to have such a variety, or even just different sports. Like one week, maybe there's, they get to do a lacrosse camp or something like that. But the ability to give them that space where also kids can be in the backyard and just play water play and building sandcastles, and just all of that freedom is what it felt for me when I was growing up. That's what life felt for me. And I do think parents these days, like you said, feel the need to fill the dance card, really, taking the kids from here to here and here, and exposing them to as much as they can, hoping they'll find some passion. But kids can really benefit, like you said, from that freedom of just enjoying that time. And unfortunately, I think what tends to happen a lot these days is that time does get filled with electronics. So it doesn't, so I think limitations and managing that, especially, during the summer and time off from school, is really important, because that is play. And I'm sure people would argue a lot with us about the benefits of those kind of games, but having this other time to play with, dolls, action figures, arts, crafts, all of the things you mentioned, just feels just critical to the process too. So I would say maybe we need 3 categories. If I was in no electronic, my child was never allowed to have games, and he learned chess and he made puzzles and he learned music. And, so he did all this other stuff to fill his time, because I didn't allow him, to do that, mostly because I thought he would never stop playing those games once he started, because of his personality. So I think finding a balance in all of this is so important. So thank you for that perspective. It was so well laid out. I really appreciate it. It really made me think. So another thing I was thinking about was, you have families that have multiple ages of children, and you're a parent who wants to engage with your children, and now you've got all of these varying ages. So what is some advice to those families and parents?
So that would depend, of course, on the specific ages of the kids that you have. But generally speaking, I would say think about choosing your toys wisely, in a way that the same toy can be appealing to a child of different ages. And again, that happens a lot with toys that tend to be a little bit more open-ended. For instance, thinking about construction blocks and bricks. So that can be a lot of fun for an elementary school or even a middle school child. Depending on the complexity of the set, they can build very complex structures. but it's also a lot of fun for a preschooler. So somebody who is a 3 or 4 year old, they seem to be obsessed with like building the tallest tower, for instance, right? So they just have a different goal. They play with that differently. And even younger kids, even toddlers, like they can just take the blocks and put them from one container to the next, and that's a lot of fun. Or they knock down the tower that their older brother or sister built, causing a little bit of frustration. But that's, again, that's what happens in play. And guess what? When frustration happens in play, kids learn to deal with their emotions, they deal to recognize that they're angry or frustrated, and they learn the art of self-regulation. So, you're frustrated, but you learn how to get over it, right? And that is also an important learning that happens in play. So things like that, that kids of different ages, they're gonna definitely play very, very differently, but with the same types of toys. And then what we saw during the pandemic and beyond, it's like simple activities, time-tested things like building forts, hide and seek,
Right.
putting up a play at your home,
Yeah.
playing cafe or ice cream shop or whatever it is. Those kinds of things, they can bring together kids of very different ages. The older kids will probably lead. They will develop this story. They will create the setup. They will decide, what the play is going to be about and who the actors and the roles are. But the younger kids can definitely participate. There is usually a role for them. And the best thing, adults can also join in on those activities. So we've talked a lot about just like kids playing, but it's also important, and at the Genius of Play, we talk a lot about the benefits of play for adults, not only for kids. So they start with simple things like stress reduction and lower anxiety. You laughing, you creating all those positive emotions. That's one thing really important, especially as we hear a lot about mental health and self-care and high elevated amounts of stress. So play is kind of a solution, a counterbalance to that. So that's one bucket. Now, a totally different bucket, it's developing relationship with your child, building that bond, because this is how kids communicate. They communicate through play. Definitely the younger one, but even older kids, even teenagers. That's what a lot of therapists and mental health experts tell us. And some of them, they have articles on the geniusofplay.org, which is where I learned all this smart stuff that I
You
didn't know
know a lot of smart
before. It's
stuff.
like, hey, if you want to talk to a teenager, to your teenager about emotions, feelings, maybe some difficult feelings that they're experiencing, the last thing you want to do is sit down at the table and say, okay, tell me how you feel or how was your day. You're not going to get an answer. But if you do it in a more playful way, if you put a playful spin on that, like one game that I think people play is called like a rose, and like it's three good things.
Rose and a thorn, and yeah, like the
Exactly, you're
yeah.
right.
It's
Rose,
a camp
thorn,
thing.
and
Yeah.
a star.
Yeah.
I've heard different spins on that game.
Yeah.
So it's like, tell me about one thing that was really happy, that you felt really good about, one thing that you were not happy about, and then maybe one thing that inspired you, right? Something like that. So when you do it like that, so it's a much richer conversation, and that's when you really get to understand what's happening with your teen and what are some of the feelings and situations that they're going through, and you can relate and you can jump in and help.
Yeah, teens are very interesting. And what I also have found, I've done a few podcasts in the past just around teens, and the parents really sometimes want to teach the kids what they know. So like if they're really into, let's say they play basketball as a kid, or their favorite game was, they love playing, I'll just make it up, building model things. And what this expert was saying to me was that you really want to lean into whatever their interests are and have them teach you. So like my son's a classical musician, and when he was younger, he knew everything about the orchestra and classical music. I didn't know anything. And there I was, like, going with him to orchestra concerts, and he'd say, listen, can you hear, do you hear that instrument? What is that? Oh, that's the clarinet, that's the oboe. So he was teaching me all of the different sounds of the orchestra. And of course, I fell in love with the music too, but he brought me there. And so we related to each other in a whole different way, because I became interested or showed an interest in what he did, as opposed to just pushing which I think parents tend to do. It's just where their comfort is. So meeting your kids where they are, opening up to their world. And if they're playing video games, and we talked about this too, wouldn't be my thing, but play the video game, see what they like about the video game, have that interaction with them, even though that just might be something that you really prefer not to do. But it is a way to make yourself relatable and to be playful and have fun. So I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah. So what are some just give me a few key takeaways for parents with like actionable tips? We talked about so much today, Anna. You really are full of incredible information and resources. This has been it's so enlightening for me. So if you can give a few key takeaways, and we focus on the summer, but like I said, it's summer all year long. So we're really talking about enriching your child's experiences when they're in your hands. They're not in school. What can you do as a parent? Weekends, after school, evenings, summers, breaks. How about some key takeaways?
Yeah, definitely. And I want to take it in a slightly different direction. But one of the things that we have not talked about, and I think it could be a key takeaway, is make time for play for your kids, for your family, but also make time for yourself. I think self-care is so important, and parents are doing a lot, especially when you're juggling so many things, working parents, but any parent really it's a full-time job and then some. So, and parents are trying to do the best they can. They really, I've never met a parent who would not be very serious and passionate about this job. So that can be exhausting and that can be overwhelming. So I would say that taking a step back, taking time for yourself, maybe finding time for something that how you like to play, right? And it doesn't need to be with toys. There are definitely adults, we call them kidults. They love to play with toys, whether it's Legos or crafts, but it doesn't have to be that. Maybe you like pickleball, maybe you like golf, maybe you like music. Like you said, your son is a musician. Music is great. So knitting, crafts, whatever it is, walking your dog, whatever it is that you like to do, I think it's really important to take time out for the self-care, for this sort of like mental health break. And I just read a very interesting report by Harvard this morning. It just came out very, very recently, and it talks about the relationship between parents' mental health and kids' mental health. So there is a direct correlation. So basically, parents who have depression, who have anxiety, who have any sorts of mental health difficulties, their kids, unfortunately, are more likely to experience mental health issues. And that's very sad. And I think it also is another argument for taking time to play, because we know that play is related to lower stress, lower anxiety, happier overall feelings, more positive, this emotional well-being. Another playbook that we have is called Emotional Wellness Playbook. So that's also on the geniusofplay.org. And that's specifically about teaching kids emotional intelligence, but also engaging with them in those activities as a parent to experience those happy moments. So that is probably my key takeaway, in addition to everything that we talked about. I didn't want to repeat myself. Definitely Unstructured playtime, in addition to structured, is very important. Modeling behavior. So kids are like sponges. So if you're on screens all the time, they're gonna model that behavior. And if you're active, if you play sports, if you go for a run, if you go on the treadmill, whatever it is that you do, they're gonna model that behavior as well. So that is important, just like staying active and modeling behaviors that you want to see in your kids. So we talked about all that, taking breaks for your mental health, making time to play. And I would say finally, maybe don't be afraid to try something new, right? So that's why we have the geniusofplay.org and Happy Camper Live and other websites where literally we have hundreds of ideas. So um, sometimes you go back to sort of like the same thing, the same activities. Summer and really any time during the year is a great time to try something fresh, and probably your kids are gonna love it, you're gonna love it, and if it doesn't work, you just move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think one of the things I can offer as a takeaway too on my end is, you know, having maybe a calendar that you look at each month and have some, maybe just pick a goal of, say, 3 or 4 things you're going to do as a family and that are playful and fun, and put that on a calendar. It could be a family game night. It could be make a video. I like what you were saying about a play. And I also know that kids love making videos. So, a play, a video, a talent show, something there that also maybe includes an outdoor activity like a nature walk or a hike, something that you can do outside. And be thoughtful. If you made a calendar for a month and just put 3 or 4 things and then added what you're going to do for yourself, pick that goal of 3 or 4 things, and 3 or 4 things that you would do that you want to, go on Genius of Play website or Happy Camper Live or other websites and say, all right, here are 4 ideas that I have here that I've taken. You have a plan. And I always think, like, people get all these resources everywhere, listen to these great podcasts, and it's about executing it. You can get all the great advice in the world, but you need to take action. So my suggestion would be, put it down on paper, whether you take your Google Calendar and you do it on your computer, or you print it out and you have it on and put it on your refrigerator. And I'll tell you something, there's something about looking forward and getting excited to do things. And it gives everybody that excitement, like, oh, the game night's coming up on Friday. And then there's the planning of it. And which games do you want to play? And what are we going to have for dinner that night? And who wants to take care of the dessert? It all becomes playful, and you create a whole playful atmosphere around it. So that would be one of my suggestions based on the amazing information that you provided, Anna, in this podcast. And I just thank you, because I've been so inspired by it. And I know our listeners are inspired by it too. So if you could just tell us a little bit more where our listeners can specifically find all these great resources and information about Genius of Play, and to continue their journey of incorporating play into their parenting, that would be great.
Sure, Allison. And thank you so much for inviting me to share all those resources with your listeners. We're very grateful for our partnership. So in terms of where to find the Genius of Play, the website is thegeniusofplay.org. We also are on Facebook and Instagram. Our handle is @Genius of Play. So you can follow us, and we share play ideas, tips. So we have a calendar for you right on Instagram. Like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we share play ideas and toy giveaways. So you can do that. And then we have a YouTube channel. So you can look for Genius of Play on YouTube if you want to see some of our play ideas in action as videos. So we have that as well. And finally, we have a podcast. It's a limited series, but it's really great, especially if you want to listen together with your kids. It's called Once Upon a Playtime. So such a playful name, Once Upon a Playtime. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. And what it is, it's a series of pretty famous personalities. Like we had Alicia Silverstone, for instance, and Simon Sinek as guests on the podcast. And they talked about their childhoods and they shared amazing things like what toys they liked to play with, what were their favorite games, and then all of that is connected to their life and their career and how it helped them become who they are today. So it's just fascinating, but it's also fascinating to learn about Alicia Silverstone's childhood. I definitely never knew, a lot of the things that she mentioned. And the way we created this podcast, it's not only for adults, but it's very, very family friendly. So you can listen with your kids and they will enjoy it and adults will enjoy it as well. So that's what we have. And it's also on the geniusofplay.org. So if you can't find it on Apple Podcasts, you can just go on the website and access everything from the geniusofplay.org.
That's awesome. I can't wait to listen to it. I'm so excited. Somebody recently asked me what my favorite toy was as a child. So I'll just share with viewers. It was Kerplunk. And Kerplunk, you would pull the little straws out. All the marbles would sit on top and you'd put the straw, like plastic sticks in, and you'd pull the sticks out and then the marbles would fall out and you try to not have all the marbles fall out. So now
Kind of like Jenga, right? Like same
yeah,
as
it is like Jenga.
yeah.
It's a lot like Jenga. And then I was talking to somebody and they were like, oh my gosh, that was my favorite game too. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I haven't thought about how these games and competition and all of that like have really influenced me as an adult. So I'm going to listen to your podcast and I can't wait. It sounds fantastic. So Anna, thank you so much for being here on our Raising a Happy Camper podcast. You can find our podcast too, wherever podcasts are heard, Apple, Spotify. We also will post this on our YouTube channel and we're super excited. We can't wait to get this out into the world because there is so much for our parents and kids to benefit from. And thank you again.
Thank you, Allison. It's been such a pleasure.
Take a moment to shine.